I wanted to share a story that was an initial no that turned into a major donor. This is about an equine therapy nonprofit. Right on St. Louis is a 25-year-old organization providing equine assisted therapy to children and adults with special needs and disabilities, as well as veterans with PTSD. And when they came to Major Gifts Ramp Up, they had experienced in their location right on the Mississippi River, they were leasing a property for 25 years. Anheuser-Busch gave them $1 a year lease. Gorgeous property with a barn, with all the horses. And in 2015 and 2018, the Mississippi River rose up more than 10 feet and flooded their entire property. Both times, the organization had to move all their horses to a temporary location, move all their equipment, or they lost a bunch of the equipment, and then they would have to come back and rebuild. It cost them about $200,000 every time they built. And after they finished the rebuild in 2019, after the last flood, then COVID hit in 2020. And because of the population they serve, they had to suspend their services. So when they came to the 2-day Major Gifts Ramp Up Conference, Marita, the founder and executive director, said, "We're down to only $200,000. We used to be at close to $1 million in annual budget. We're down to 200,000. We've lost all of our grants. We've lost our funding. We've lost our donors because we don't have any clients because I had to furlough all of the staff during COVID. And this is my last hope. If this doesn't work, I'm closing my doors after 25 years. No pressure. We had the awareness event. We sent out our compiled list, and there was a couple who were on the download list, the DonorScope download list of millionaires, Jim and Shirley. Jim and Shirley received the invitation. We called to follow up to try to secure their RSVP to the awareness event, and they said no. But we had a lovely conversation. They said, Jim said, "I'll tell you what we'll do. I'm going to invite our daughter and son-in-law to go to the awareness event and check it out." So the daughter and son-in-law came to the awareness luncheon. The executive director properly followed up in Prospect Cultivation, Chapter 8. She found out that the daughter and son-in-law have their own barn, have their own horses. They breed and raise horses. And she went out and in the spring looked at the new foals that they had and began to develop a relationship with the daughter and son-in-law, who arguably don't have two pennies to rub together, technically compared to the wealth of the parents. And then when it came time for the Signature Ask event, Marita had earned the right to ask Lisa and David, "Will you come to the Signature Ask event, and will you bring your mom and dad to that event?" And they said, "Yes, it's going to be hard, but we're going to work on them and we're going to get them there." And they did. And at the Signature Ask event, Jim and Shirley on our DonorScope millionaire list, gave a first gift of $10,000. You see, that gift at the Signature Ask event is not a major gift, it's a first gift. They gave a $10,000 gift. We then followed up properly after that event with Jim and Shirley, and Jim and Shirley invited us to come meet with them at their home. We sat at their kitchen table. Shirley shared how Lisa, their adult daughter, had actually been placed for adoption. You see, Shirley had a daughter when she was a teenager, and back in her day, if you were a pregnant teen, you went off to a home with Catholic nuns, you had the baby, and no one knew about your pregnancy or birth. You placed the child for adoption, and then you went back home as if nothing had ever happened. And the only person in the world who had ever known for 50 years that Shirley had a child was her mother. And then 50 years later, Shirley, who was an equestrian, went to buy a horse. And it turns out that Lisa was the woman selling her the horse. And Lisa knew her birth mother's name. And she said, "I think you're my mother." And they shared with us the whole story of how Shirley and her daughter Lisa were reunited. And then how Shirley shared the information with Jim that she had a daughter when she was 17, and how Jim embraced Lisa. And he said, Shirley and I could never have children together, and I finally had a daughter. And how amazing, how horses brought them all together. And then I will tell you, because of that conversation and the vulnerability they shared, We shared with him how we needed a new barn. It was going to cost $1 million and it would take $200,000 to secure the mortgage. Jim wrote the check for $200,000 right there at the kitchen table that night. He then reached out to his business partners and secured the remaining $1 million that was needed for the property. That all started with a no.